ส่งเดินเข้าห้องได้เห็นเข้าห้องจบ
ธนาคาร
ยังอยู่พี่เขายังไม่ให้ไปไหนเลย
ควบคู่กันไปอย่างเช่นสถานเอกอัครราชทูตไทยและองค์กรเซอร์นั้นก็จะทำหน้าที่ดูแลความสัมพันธ์ทางด้านทวิภาคีกับประเทศส่วนด้านความสัมพันธ์ระหว่างประเทศไทยกับสหภาพยุโรปนั้นสถานเอกอัครราชทูตไทยก็ทำหน้าที่เป็นคณะผู้แทนไทยประจำสหภาพยุโรปที่คอยดูแลความสัมพันธ์ในหลายๆด้านกับสหภาพยุโรปค่ะความมั่นคงและเศรษฐกิจจึงสามารถกำหนดกฎเกณฑ์ต่างๆที่ประเทศอื่นๆต้องปฏิบัติตามดังนั้นประเทศไทย
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome all of you to the seminar on EU regulations on food and feed safety, current states of affairs and future trends. My name is Natha Sawanpaiboon. I'm going to be the MC on this informative seminars. สวัสดีแขกท่านผู้มีเกียรติทุกท่านค่ะดิฉันนางสาวธนถา สวนไพบูลย์ได้รับหน้าที่พิธีกรในวันนี้ค่ะขอต้อนรับทุกท่านเข้าสู่การสัมมนาเชิงวิชาการหัวข้อ EU Regulations on Food and Feed Safety Current State of Affairs and Future Trend For the first part of the seminar, and this morning we have two sessions. The first session is EU Regulations on Feed and Feed Additives.which we have Dr. Claudia Loncasio-Benier, Head of Feed Unit from Italy, and Dr. Gudrun Gauhoff, Expert and Director General for Health and Consumer, to be the keynote speakers for this session. สำหรับในช่วงแรกของการสัมมนานะคะเราได้รับเกียรติจากท่านวิทยากร2ท่านคือท่านดร. Claudia Loncasio-Benier ผู้อำนวยการ Feed Unit ของ European Food Safety Authority และดร. Gudrun Gauhoffผู้เชี่ยวชาญจากคณะกรรมาธิการยุโรปด้านสุขภาพและผู้บริโภคมาบรรยายในหัวข้อ Feed Additives Definition Substance Group Historical Background For this moment we have honor to welcome Dr. Sumet Sapchukun President of Thai Poultry Veterinary Association and Secretary of Veterinary Council of Thailand to be the moderator for the whole day.May I now provide you briefly a little bit with Dr. Sumet's biography. He graduated Doctor from Veterinary Medicine from Kasetsart University and Diploma on Mini MBA from Thammasat University. For his present position, he is Secretary of Veterinary Councils of Thailand, President of Thai Poultry Veterinary Association, Advisory Committee of Faculty of Veterinary Medicine of Kasetsart University, Committee of the World Poultry Science Association Thailand, and Committee of the Animal Health Product User Club. ทั้งนี้นะคะเราได้รับเกียรติจากนายสัตวแพทย์สุเมธ ทรัพย์ชูกุลนายกสมาคมสัตวแพทย์ควบคุมฟาร์มสัตว์ปีกและเลขาสัตวแพทยสภามารับหน้าที่ผู้ดำเนินรายการในวันนี้ค่ะสำหรับประวัติโดยย่อของท่านนะคะท่านจบการศึกษาสัตวแพทยศาสตร์บัณฑิตมหาวิทยาลัยเกษตรศาสตร์และจบหลักสูตรมินิ MBA มหาวิทยาลัยธรรมศาสตร์ในปัจจุบันท่านดำรงตำแหน่งนายกสมาคมสัตวแพทย์ควบคุมฟาร์มสัตว์ปีกเลขานุการสัตวแพทยสภาคณะกรรมการที่ปรึกษาของคณะสัตวแพทยศาสตร์มหาวิทยาลัยเกษตรศาสตร์คณะกรรมการสมาคมสัตว์ปีกโลกประเทศไทยและในโอกาสอันดีนี้ดิฉันขออนุญาตมอบหน้าที่ผู้ดำเนินรายการให้แก่ท่านสุเมธค่ะขอเรียนเชิญค่ะ
ขอบคุณครับ Thank you very much Very long introduction, huh? Yeah, yeah. Actually, today we said all the participants should be, full, huh? Fully booked. But I wonder why we, still have the plenty of seats left, huh? According to our association. Everybody would like to go, but we have only a certain quota. We cannot exceed that. So I think the organizer should be back. Should be back. Anybody that don't want to come, don't just let the others will come. Okay. Welcome everybody. We are, let's say, we have a good chance today. According to our industry here, very huge. I think EU also our most important customer, right? Are you agree with me, sir? Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen. Okay, so today we got the honor from Claudia Roncancio Pina. She will be our guest speaker to talk about EU regulatory framework and risk assessment of the feed. So actually, she working at the European Food Safety Authority, we call EFSA. Okay, she's the head of the feed unit. That very, important person. If you have any question, you can ask directly to her. Any question, just ask her. Okay, and she dealing with the risk assessment of the additives and products or substance used in animal feed. The mission of the feed, as she head of the feed unit, the mission of the feed unit is provide scientific and administrative support to the feed app panel in the assessment of feed additives. In particular, in relation to the safety for the target animal, anybody have non-target species as well, right? You have to concern, So the consumer, no doubt, we have to concern as well. Even though the environment, I think Claudia realized that, okay, should be, yes. It's a must. And its efficacy of the products, in addition to that, it provides support on the evaluation of the feed for particular nutritional purpose, not just only the medication. Oh, no, I cannot say the medication. We will confuse again about the medication and feed additive. Later on, yes. Today, we will have a clear picture according to, I talked with them already. So, general, especially Claudia, she will focus on the feed additive produced by genetically modified, GMO, or in evaluation of the genetic modified feed, any genetic modified, she will take care for that. Claudia Roncancio Pina has a scientific background on microbiology in the Columbia University de Los Angeles, right, Claudia?
Yes.
Sorry if my pronunciation was wrong. Perfect. She has a master in science as well. Universidad Javeriana in Bogota, Colombia. You wonder why? Claudia in Colombia, but she works in Europe, right?
Yes, and Belgium. In fact, I am also Belgium.
Yes.
Doesn't seem, but I am also Belgium.
You can speak Flemish?
No.
No?
I speak French.
I see, okay. If you speak French, you can stay in Belgium. Previously, she has been working in Directorate General Environment at the European Commission in Brussels. She contributed to the development of the community strategy on endocrine disruptor, as well as to the community strategy on environment and health, with specific emphasis on children health and environment. You see? Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Claudia Roncancio Pina. Please, Claudia.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Sumet. It was really a very nice presentation. I hope that all those expectations are going to be fulfilled today. Well, I will try. I am available for questions during the coffee. If you need something also, please don't hesitate to ask. I'm here to help and to provide as much information as possible. We will be working today with the regulatory framework and the risk assessment of feed. So as it has been already introduced, I work in EFSA, the European Food Safety Authority. The authority is in charge of the risk assessment of all different substances in what we call from farm to fork. So working with the pesticides, with the GMO, with biohazards, biological hazards. So in this particular occasion, we will be working with feed. You know very well that feed is a very complex mixture. It contains many, many different elements. We have the feed materials. They can be raw, they can be processed, they can be semi-processed. We have the feed additives. It's a complete full world of things. So we have chemicals, we have some biological, we have a lot of microorganisms also as feed additives. Chemical, we have a lot of vitamins, we have preservatives, we have a lot of mix in the group of feed additives. We have the contaminants also. We have chemical contaminants, for example, the heavy metals. We have biological contaminants, and then EFSA also is dealing with contaminants in feed. And we have medicines in the area of feed. We are also facing our daily life with some medicine, with some veterinary medicines. So we start saying that we are living in a very complex environment, in a complex mixture. I'm putting here an example of the situation, the players in this area in Europe, but probably we will have some similar institutions here. So we have, first of all, the industry, the manufacturers. They have a central role in this area. EFSA, which is doing the risk assessment. The European Commission, which uses the opinions produced by EFSA to make the authorizations of the different feed additives, of the different products. We have also close collaboration with the European Union Reference Laboratory. So in Europe, once we have a product, a feed additive authorized to be placed on the market, the European Union Reference Laboratory needs to identify and to assess a control method, an official control method. What is an official control method? It's a method that has been validated and we know that can be used in all different member states for control purposes. Remember here, control are under the remit of the member states. EFSA is doing risk assessment, Commission risk management. Now we have a complete separation of these two tasks. And then we have the member states, a third party, and they are also dealing with the control. In addition, we have a very close contact with the European Medicine Agency. Why we have this contact? Because we have common substances. Maybe you know very well the coccidiostat. So the coccidiostat are also considered veterinary medicine substances, and at the same time, there are feed additives. So we have to liaise with them very, very closely, because also they are setting maximum residue limits, they are setting withdrawal periods. So Europe needs to talk with only one voice. So we need to share our knowledge, share our experiences with the EMA. So let's say these are the players in Europe in relation with feed. We all have one big objective, which is the safety. As we just introduced, it is the safety for the animal, first of all, our first client, the consumer of products from animal origin, the environment, and the users or the farmers. Because here the users are not only the people that is in a factory working with the additives. We have all the farmers at our farm level. We are all working, we can work with some of these feed additives. So the objective is common, the objective is safety, and the regulations in Europe, they are mainly dealing with safety. It is also an important issue in the regulation that we are dealing with efficacy. However, it is not a real risk-benefit analysis that EFSA is doing. For the time being, the risk-benefit analysis is out of the scope of the regulation. It's out of the scope of the mandate of the panel, of the feed-up panel, and all other panels dealing with feed. And we are only making an assessment of efficacy of the product. I will show you this a little bit later. So the common objective, safety, and let's say also efficacy. We are working in the risk assessment with this framework on hazard identification, characterization, exposure assessment, and risk characterization. Just before starting, I would like just to be sure that we all agree with the definition of a hazard and a risk. Hazard, do we know hazard here? So a hazard, the computer could be a hazard. This could be a hazard. And the risk is the probability that I launch this thing or that I launch this computer to the audience. That is a risk for you. But here is still a hazard. The probability that I will do it, so the exposure, it depends. If you make me happy, I'm not going to launch it. If not, it could be a risk. So you have to take the risk. So hazards, we have a lot of hazards. We have to put the probability, so the exposure, the means to reach to you, how, to the animal or to the human, and the risk, which is really the probability that will touch you, that will have an impact on you. This is the main principle in all risk assessments. So this is, I think, we have to be very clear on the difference between hazard and risk. First of all, we need to identify a hazard. A hazard could be, let's say, a feed additive, could be a contaminant. The hazard, we can have data and information on the hazard from many different means. We have, for example, surveillance or monitoring programs. So we have the RASFF, the Rapid Alert System Food and Feed in Europe. So it's a surveillance. Every week, we get data on potential hazards. We can have, in the case of a feed additive, we can have data from a dossier. So the applicant, the manufacturer, produce the data to help us to identify the hazard. So the hazard would be physicochemical properties, is it going to migrate, is easy bioavailable. All of this information relates to the hazard. In the case of feed additives, we consider also the information produced by other agencies. We have JECFA, we have the WHO, we have many other reports that we use to characterize the hazard. Once we characterize this hazard, we move to when we identify the hazard, we will move into more detailed characterization with toxicological data. It is important also to consider that hazards can be modified according, for example, with environmental conditions. This is the simple condition, let's say. A hazard here in Thailand probably is not going to be the same as in Finland. Let's talk about a silage. Keep a silage here or in the south of Italy, where it's really warm. The hazard will be different if we have this silage in Finland. Temperature, different. Humidity, different. So the hazard can be modulated also according to some environmental conditions, and we have to consider this when we analyze a hazard. We characterize the hazard through many different toxicological data. We can have toxicological data or short-term toxicity studies to the animal, that is what we call a tolerance study. We can characterize the hazard for the humans. So in this case, we will need toxicological data. So we need genotoxicity data, we need subchronic data, we need carcinogenicity data, reproductive toxicity data, and we will need all metabolism data, metabolism and distribution. So we will know how much of the specific hazard will migrate to the products, to the milk, to the meat, fish flesh. So we need to characterize all of this through all of these different studies. In the case of the animal, well, we will link the feed consumption and the chemical occurrence. So the first, as I said before, the first clients here, the first contact with the feed, we have the animal. Which type of animals is wide, is very wide. So we will need to be very careful on the analysis of all of this data. We have farm animals, so food-producing animals. We have the eggs. At the end, we will have the milk. We will have the meat. In the regulation now, we include also pets and horses. So before, in the previous regulation, pets were not included. Now, for the first time, we consider pets under the scope of this regulation. Our fish, our dog, they are all included here. And we have also, of course, fish, but just for consumption, not only for ornamental fish. So we have the whole panel of animal here. So we will need to identify the occurrence of the chemical, the consumption, so the weight of the animal is important, the characteristic, physiological characteristic and metabolism characteristic of the animals to be able to match, to make this probability puzzle, let's say, part of the puzzle. So then we will have the exposure. This will be the exposure to the animal. Then we will need the exposure to humans because we are consuming some of these things. So then we will have also the metabolism data. We will identify the quantity of residues in edible products, and we will see to how much we are going to be exposed. And for all of this, we have ways to calculate. We can characterize then the risk. So we already have the hazard. We characterize the hazard, this one. The exposure, so the probability that it will reach you. And at the end, we have a characterization, which is the measure of the probability of those that this risk will attain you, will get you. We have different ways to do it. We have, for example, once we identify a no observed adverse effect level in a toxicological study, we will identify, and this is a critical effect in one study, this is the lowest critical effect in one study, we will match this with the exposure. In some other cases, we have mathematical models when we do not have enough data, and we will use what we call the benchmark dose. It's a mathematical model that will modulate a dose-response curve with very few data. But in this case, we can have an idea of the dose response and the exposure to be able to characterize the hazard, to say, well, the probability that the animals will reach, or that the hazard will reach the animal and will be converted into a risk is high, is medium, is low. So now we complete the process. Hazard, exposure, and risk. We have different panels dealing, we have a little bit, we have different panels dealing with feed safety. So we have the biohazard panel. The biohazard panel is biological hazards. They are dealing with all of these issues related in food safety and foodborne diseases. Let's jump 1 second to the GMO panel. The GMO panel is dealing with the genetically modified organisms, and the feeder panel, we are dealing with additives and products or substances intentionally added to feed. It's just one word, intentionally added. That will make the whole difference with a contaminant. A contaminant is an unintended substance that arrives into the feed, while the feed additive is something that we decided to put. For which reason? We have many different reasons. For example, satisfy the nutritional needs of the animals. One example. We have these 4 panels in EFSA. Each one has a specific remit, so in a specific area of work. And then, of course, we are all communicating